Executive Mayor of the city of Johannesburg, Mayor Mpho Phalatse, has revealed the city is considering writing off Soweto's multi-billion rand electricity debt owed to it by the residents over many decades now. The news comes after residents marched to her offices 3 weeks ago demanding a solution to poor service delivery and even poorer electricity supply in the sprawling township. Upon invitation, the mayor's office indicated to In Focus that she'd prefer to address Soweto residents first. Joining us now to share his reaction to the news is Soweto Electricity Crisis Committee member, Dr. Trevor Ngwane. Dr. Ngwane, good evening and thank you very much for your time and for joining us tonight here on In Focus. First and foremost, I mean, the statement is that the mayor wants to first, of course, address the residents of Soweto, but we've gotten hold of the contemplation, certainly, on her part. And the feeling is that from their deliberations internally with their treasury, the debt is actually worth nothing because nobody can recover the debt. Not even City Power can recover the debt. Is that where you would have wanted the city to be in terms of its realization around this debt?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Yeah, it's a good thing, for the mayor to speak like this because it is exactly what Sowetans want to hear, to scrap that debt which actually does not exist, which Sowetans have always said it's a thumb suck. It was always a stick to blame the problems of energy supply in South Africa, in the townships, on the victims of Eskom and poor management of electricity. But I must say that saying this does not mean that she is doing anyone a favor. In fact, she needs to go much further. She has to affirm people's right to electricity. Because I heard now that in the same breath, she was saying there is no free electricity, basically repeating that World Bank neoliberal ideology that the user must pay even if we are poor, to squeeze blood from a stone.
Yeah, that's very interesting because, I mean, she's thinking this extending this debt write-off would certainly, to some extent, ease the burden on a financially distressed ratepayer, and then they will then be willing to comply with the program's conditions, which means that they will be willing, for an example, to keep up with their debt. Is that a given? Is that an automatic that now that that would be extended to the residents of Soweto, they will now be willing to keep up with their monthly repayments?
I don't believe so. I think the most important thing is to state out clearly that everyone has a right to electricity, during these modern times, whether they can afford to pay or not. So that is the basic thing. The second thing is to look at the socio-economic condition of the masses. In Soweto, it's the biggest urban township, working class township in South Africa. I would say a third of the people are unemployed. Another third, they are the working poor. They work but don't get a living wage. So clearly, you need a bigger solution than just to stop at scrapping the debt. Because if you simply scrap the debt, you start all over again the cycle, and you'll never solve the problem.
Yeah. What is the view then of the sort of electricity crisis around the fact that she also says those who can pay must continue to pay? So I suppose this extension of debt relief is only extended to those who can't afford.
Yes. So remember that during her predecessor, Mayor Mashaba, when Herman Mashaba was still DA, the ANC government had put into place a free basic electricity policy whereby every resident was getting, every household was getting 50 kilowatt hour of electricity per month. So although that's 50 kilowatt hour per month, but it did indicate that everyone must have access to electricity. Number two, it was beginning to point towards cross-subsidization of the rich, of the poor, because it was placed together with what is called progressive block tariffs, which means that the more you use, the more you pay. So those, the upper middle class, also big business, they pay more per unit. And that extra money is provided to the poor so that they can get enough free electricity.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of nuance we need. Not just to say, everyone must pay for electricity and then there'll be an indigency policy. In fact, she's taking us back, whereas we had moved forward, and then Herman Mashaba blocked that, reversed that.
So will this, in a sense, result in a better working relationship between the city and the residents to the extent that officials will now be allowed to install prepaid meters?
Well, basically, we don't agree to prepaid meters because it's based on that ideology. Basically, the ground is burning under the mayor's feet. As you saw, there was that big march, and then they marched to her. Now, I think the city is negotiating with Eskom to try and get out of this problem by saying the city should take over, the running of electricity. As you know, Eskom is the one billing the people of Soweto. And I'm certain Eskom is saying, yeah, but you must take over the debt. So there's going to be a problem because to take over the debt means to pay for the debt. It's almost like, buying, Eskom's books. So I imagine she had to say something like that. Otherwise, she simply has got no way forward. Remember also, she must give an answer, to the residents, because during the march, she promised to get back to them within 14 days, 21 days. So this could unfortunately be part of the delaying tactics. And then there will be negotiations with Eskom. And then she can say, hey, I'm trying, but Eskom is not moving.
Yeah.
So this might take a long time,
Yeah.
And I don't think that there's a solution around the corner.
It does look like it will take a while still because the general crisis here is, as you put it, Eskom has said we spend money to generate this electricity. So they are not of the idea of writing off debt. In fact, one of the questions that they put forward was why not other townships? If Soweto, then why not other townships? That's what the other townships will ask. So you'll have a general crisis where all the townships, where there are people who are financially in distress, will say, well, if you've done it for Soweto, then do it for all of us, and we can't afford to pay.
Exactly. That is why I'm against what I call a piecemeal, gradually solution. Let us just look at the debt in Soweto. Because exactly the solution is not about Soweto. It's about a crisis, a national crisis. It's not only a question of consumption, of whether the poor can afford or not. We are hit by power failures, rolling load shedding. In fact, the energy crisis is much bigger than, that so-called debt. So I think that the mayor, Eskom, the ANC, all the leaders, including big business, by the way, civil society, and the unions must sit down and come up, with real solutions.
Yeah.
Not these piecemeal, gradually, sometimes even populist, audience buying solutions.
So if I understand you well, I mean, you're saying this gesture, this posturing could just simply be a posturing to manage expectations, but not necessarily a real concrete solution to the crisis. And what will happen when the people of Soweto realize eventually that, well, the mayor was just simply managing expectations?
Well, it's so, you are exactly on the ball, because she said she's going to meet with the leaders of Soweto, and she wants these leaders to help her to exactly manage expectations. So that is why I say it's a delaying tactic. The real problem with electricity in South Africa is privatization, commercialization, and financialization. We have to remove profit from the provision of electricity. As soon as profit was introduced, all hell broke loose. During apartheid days, of course, electricity was serving, white monopoly capital and the white sector. But, Eskom was not expected to make a profit. And if there was a surplus, it was reimbursed, planted into Eskom operations. But now with the ANC, the idea is that you can make money and make a profit. So that is what must stop. We have to produce and distribute electricity on a different principle, putting people's needs to be.
Dr. Trevor Ngwane, I appreciate your time as always. Thanks for coming on. Soweto Electricity Crisis Committee member, Dr. Trevor Ngwane.